Great games in the morning. This is Jonathan Albin with Session Zero Chronicles, and I had to start late because my audio wasn't working. Today we're going to be covering the Falaran Eldrin population and how they came to be and information about them and how they fit into a NycosRPG role-playing game. As you may recall, the Session Zero Chronicles are the basic information you would need to play the specific race and in the particular environs that I'm going to talk about. And this is part of a series, so there are many more episodes about this on the on the YouTube channel, which is at NycosRPG as well. So today we're going to talk about the Falaran, and the Falaran are a relatively new named species on Nykos. They had other names before, but we are going to be speaking of them in particular. And before we go too far, let's go ahead and talk about the distinguishing marks of being a Falaran. Each species on Nykos has a particular list of characteristics that are called marks, and they are advanceable skills, if you will. They're basically things that the species has as identifiers that can be improved over time. The mechanism for the game is the Dark Shards system book from NycosRPG. This is the first volume. It's available through lulu.com. If you go there and search for NycosRPG and Jonathan Albin, you'll be able to find it. And this is also available as a PDF through our website at www.NycosRPG.com. So the Falaran species has the following characteristics. First of all, they have the characteristic of social ambiguity. This fundamentally means that although they are a unique species, they are so affable with all of the other species that they have developed the capacity to blend and convert their image and even their vocal patterns to be indistinguishable from any of the other Eldrin species that are in the Undersky. Now, there are species of the Eldrin population that live in the Everdark, but the Falaran don't have the capacity to pass themselves off for them, as you will see perhaps a little bit later when we talk of those species. This social ambiguity attribute, if you will, is a function of their presence and resilience and a matter of their demeanor, and they can appear as actually other species beyond the Eldrin population as well on a successful check. So they can even pass as humans, mortal, or whatever. So the second of their attributes, the second of their marks, is the ability to quick step, and that is to pass over terrain, even difficult terrain at higher speeds, merely because they have a particular style of motion and grace known as a form of parkour, if you will. And so therefore they move through terrain relatively quickly. They also have a specific mark of graciousness that gives them a particular speak in public settings as far as speech, and they can automatically raise their status within any political environment simply by their ability and their understanding of how people communicate. They also have the ability to conceal, and this literally allows them to take a physical object of no larger than, say, their body size, and cause it to be undiscoverable if they choose to conceal it and are successful. They also have the ability to tree speak, which means they can communicate with all surface or undersky life forms, and therefore they can learn information literally from the very forest and groves in the area. They also have the ability to river walk, which is to cross small bodies of water as if they were walking on the surface, simply because they move so quickly and so gracefully, they never actually come in contact with the surface itself. And then finally, they have Echo of Clouds, which is a communication skill, which is voiceless ventriloquism. So they literally can cast their voice to some other position in the distance, and it works particularly well when there is some form of occlusion in the sky, whether that be dust or smoke or mist, fog, that kind of thing. So within the concept of the marks of Frelaren, their characteristics are you're able to choose up to 6 out of the 7 or 8 that I just listed, and they become the marks or the characteristics that your character presents to the world. And although that first one actually grants them the ability to look like other species, generally speaking, just that variability of altering their appearance and such is itself a mark of being Frelaren. So now let's talk about where you may find them. The Frelaren population are found across the majority of Nykos, with their particular focuses being in the mobile city, the traveling city of Trantor, and the capital of the king known as Valera. And from those 2 locations, their population concentrations have expanded out so that they are found in virtually in any environment. So a player who chooses to play a Frelaren can choose one or both or neither of these as their primary origin spot to give an idea of where they have developed their culture and how they were connected with their people, so to speak. Now, these 2 cities are radically different in their cultures. Trantor being very communal and very communicative and trading based. They tend to move around and are very, very willing to embrace other cultures, whereas the people of Valera are more reserved and are trying to rebuild the legacy of the Eldrin people, even within their own population. So we're going to talk a little bit about Freya and Valara. Now, these 2 personalities are they who originated this concept of a return to greatness of the species that was on the brink of destruction. Freya was a being of the royal blood who was indeed part of the ancient Eldrin culture and virtually watched her people being destroyed by the abomination that occurred within their culture, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Whereas Valara was a creature, a being who had been born a human being, but had gone through a hyper magical methodology that converted her bloodline to Eldrin, and in the process gave to her the visage and appearance of one of the champions of the past. And this champion had been elevated in many circles to near deityhood, and so it was giving Valera a bit of a challenge. And so Freya, who was looking for more communal approaches, and Valara, who was looking for a reduction in her status, the 2 of them combined their ideas and established this new culture known as Frelaren. Now, this came about. Now we're going to look at the history of it. We're looking at it from the standpoint of, in a previous iteration, namely the 6th iteration, the players who had been involved had a particularly villainous member who corrupted the entire Eldrin population by consorting with, dealing with a fundamentally an extraterrestrial insectoid species that then infiltrated and corrupted the Eldrin population of Dia. The kingdom of Dia was fairly destroyed and obliterated by this abomination as the Ixal took over their biological forms and created these rather horrid hybrid hornet / flying being / Eldrin things. So it was awful. Anyway, this abomination had nearly obliterated all of the Eldrin to the point that in the 7th iteration, they were very nearly hunted to extinction. So in the period of the 8th iteration, the Dayan population was fundamentally laid low, and it took the entire iteration to reestablish them. And this all was stemmed back to the original abomination, which occurred in a place known as Vafthrender. So naturally, the city of Vafthrender was considered to be a besmirching of Eldrin culture because it was a destroyed and corrupted capital. And so this lost city where all these horrid things happened was taken out of existence during the 8th iteration. And that left the opportunity for the Dayan population to re-emerge. But since they had such a bad reputation for their involvement, Freya and Valara, as I said, connected their intentions and brought together a new entire species rising from the ashes of Daya to become the Freylarans. So now looking at the species going forward, the Freylarans' goal or objective is to continue their expansion and their affability approach. So they are continuously adding new population centers to their enclaves. And so throughout the majority of Nykos now, there are at least some pockets of population of Eldrin. So if a player chooses to play a Freylaran, they can hail from any particular city, but if they're looking for their culture, then they would also be linking themselves back to either Trantor or Valara. So, having said all of that, I want to thank you for your participation in Session Zero Chronicles. If you get a chance, check out our broadcasts when we do them on twitch.tv/Nykos. We're on every night at 11 p.m. and on select nights we also do the 9 o'clock Session Zeros. So in either cases, you're more than welcome to join in, participate through chat, and if you become a Patreon supporter through patreon.com/Nykos, you can actually speak on the channel by getting access to our Discord. So I want to thank you again for participating. If you haven't yet, make sure you click the follow button on Twitch or the subscribe button on YouTube. That'll definitely help us to get the word out about what we're doing. And if you have any comments, make sure you leave them below so that I can respond to them. We'll be doing new Session Zero Chronicles as frequently as I can get to them, always recording at 9 p.m. or thereafter. And I want to thank you